Red bags mean biological hazard. Yellow is chemotherapy waste. Black is pharmaceutical. But sometimes I get bags that are the wrong color red, like they've been dyed with something that isn't quite blood. The company's specific about these. Load without counting. Drive directly to coordinates provided. Do not stop. The coordinates are never the same twice. Never an official disposal site. Last night, I followed a red bag truck that was supposed to be mine. Same license plate, same company logo. I was following myself. The other me turned and waved. My name is Derek Vance, and I've been driving medical waste trucks for biosafe disposal services for 3 years now. The night shift. Always the night shift. Because that's when hospitals prefer to have their biological hazards removed. Less chance of disturbing patients. Less chance of the public seeing bags of human tissue and surgical waste being loaded into unmarked trucks. The pay is good. $32 an hour, plus hazard pay, and nobody bothers you. Most people don't even know medical waste trucks exist until they see one at 3 a.m. and wonder what the hell it's doing at a hospital loading dock. The job is simple in theory. Follow the route, pick up sealed containers, transport them to approved disposal facilities, usually incinerators or specialized treatment plants. Don't open anything. Don't ask questions. Don't deviate from the route. The company is strict about protocols because medical waste is serious business. One improperly disposed needle can spread HIV or hepatitis. One bag of surgical waste in a regular landfill can contaminate groundwater. We're the last line of defense between biological hazards and the public. I got the job after my EMT career ended. Saw too much. Saved too few. Started drinking to forget the faces of people who died while I was trying to save them. The medical waste job was perfect. No human interaction, no life or death decisions, just driving and following protocols. The dead were already dead by the time their pieces reached my truck. Training was 2 weeks of safety procedures, hazmat protocols, and route memorization. My trainer was an old guy named Bill, who'd been doing this for 20 years. He was retiring. I was taking over his route. Route 47, the night circuit through the Eastern District. 7 hospitals, 4 clinics, 2 research facilities, and what Bill called the special pickups. That's what you need to understand about this job, Bill told me on my last training night. There are the regular pickups, the ones on your official manifest, and then there are the special pickups. They'll appear on your route list sometimes, addresses that don't quite make sense, empty lots, abandoned buildings, coordinates in the middle of nowhere. You pick up what's there. You don't ask questions. You deliver where they tell you. What if I refuse? I asked. Bill looked at me with tired eyes. I had a partner once, Jimmy. Good guy, family man. He refused a special pickup, said it violated safety protocols. Next day, his truck was found at the bottom of a ravine. Jimmy was still in it, but he'd been dead for 3 days according to the coroner. Problem was, I'd had lunch with him the day before. Time works different when you refuse the special pickups. I thought he was trying to scare the new guy, hazing or something, but his expression was deadly serious. The company knows, he continued. They don't talk about it, but they know. That's why we get hazard pay that's triple the normal rate. That's why they don't drug test us anymore. That's why they don't install GPS trackers in the trucks, even though every other fleet vehicle in America has them. They don't want to know where we really go. My first month was normal. Hospitals, clinics, research labs, everything by the book. Red bags for biological waste, yellow for chemo, black for pharmaceutical, white for pathological waste. Each bag tagged, manifested, tracked from cradle to grave. I'd pick up, drive to the incinerator on the outskirts of the city, watch them unload, get my receipts, move on to the next pickup. The first special pickup came 5 weeks into the job. I was checking my route list at the start of my shift, and there it was. Between St. Mary's Hospital and Riverside Medical, a new address, 47 Industrial Way. I knew that area. It was all empty warehouses, most of them condemned after the chemical plant explosion in 2008. But the pickup was on my list, officially printed, not handwritten or added later. I drove out there at 2 a.m. as scheduled. The road was dark. Streetlights had been out for years. My headlights swept across broken windows, rusted doors, graffiti-covered walls. Then I saw it. A single red container, the industrial size, sitting in front of a warehouse that should have been empty. The container was pristine, new, with a BioSafe logo that looked fresh from the factory. But it was the wrong red. Normal biohazard red is bright, almost orange. This was dark red, like dried blood or old wine. The manifest was tucked into a slot on the container. Simple delivery instructions, coordinates instead of an address. I should have been suspicious, but Bill's words echoed in my head. Don't refuse the special pickups. I loaded the container using the truck's hydraulic lift. It was heavy, much heavier than normal medical waste. Inside, something shifted with a wet sound, like bags of liquid adjusting position. But there was something else too, a sound like breathing, rhythmic and deep. The coordinates led me 30 miles out of the city to an unmarked building that looked like a bunker. No signs, no windows, just a loading dock with a single light. A man in a hazmat suit was waiting. He didn't speak, just gestured for me to unload. I did, got my receipt, and left. The whole interaction took less than 5 minutes. That became my new normal. Every week or two, a special pickup would appear on my route. Always the wrong red containers, always at impossible locations, always with coordinate deliveries to places that didn't officially exist. I stopped questioning it. The pay was too good, and honestly, I was curious. What was in those containers? Who was organizing this? Why did it have to happen at night? 3 months ago, things got stranger. I was doing a regular pickup at Mercy General when I saw another BioSafe truck pulling out. Nothing unusual. We had multiple trucks covering the city, but this one had my truck number, B47, my license plate. I could even see the dent in the rear bumper from when I'd backed into a loading dock my first week. I followed it. I know I shouldn't have, but I had to understand what was happening. The truck drove my exact route, making my scheduled pickups, but 3 hours ahead of schedule. I watched from a distance as someone who looked exactly like me got out, loaded containers, checked manifests. He moved like me, had my same habitual check of the side mirror, the same way of stretching his back after lifting. When the other truck headed for the coordinates of that night's special delivery, I followed. It led me to a place I'd never been, an industrial complex that looked abandoned but had fresh tire tracks. The other me got out, and that's when he turned and waved. Not surprised to see me, like he'd been expecting me. I drove away fast, didn't finish my route that night. Called in sick for 3 days. When I came back, my supervisor acted like nothing had happened. My route sheets showed I'd completed every pickup that night, even though I knew I hadn't. The receipts were in my truck, in my handwriting, time-stamped for when I was following the other truck. Since then, I've been documenting everything, taking photos of the special pickup locations, keeping copies of the strange manifests, trying to track the coordinates. What I've found doesn't make sense. Some of the pickup locations are from hospitals that were never built, architectural plans that were rejected. Some are from facilities that won't exist for years, according to city planning documents I've found. The dates on some manifests are wrong, showing years that haven't happened yet, or decades that have long passed. Last week, I found a pattern in the coordinates. They're not random. When plotted on a map, they form a shape, a symbol I've seen before. It was in one of my EMT textbooks, in a chapter about historical medical practices, a symbol used by anatomists in the 18th century to mark bodies that were obtained through unofficial channels, grave robbing, basically. But these coordinates aren't graves. They're something else. The breaking point came last night. Another special pickup, another wrong red container. But this time the manifest had a patient name. Usually they're just codes and numbers, no identifying information. But this one had a name I recognized. Derek Vance, my name. And a date of death. Tomorrow. I sat in my truck staring at that manifest for 20 minutes. Derek Vance, time of death, 3:47 a.m., November 15th, 2024. That was less than 24 hours away. Cause of death was listed as temporal hemorrhage, which isn't a real medical term. I know, I was an EMT for 6 years. Hemorrhage means bleeding, but temporal, that refers to time, not the temporal bone of the skull. The pickup location was new too. 1447 Mercy Drive. I knew every medical facility in the city, and there was nothing at that address. According to my phone's GPS, it was a residential area, suburban homes built in the 1960s. But the manifest was official, printed on biosafe letterhead, with all the proper authorization codes. I broke protocol. Instead of loading the container immediately, I opened it. Inside were medical waste bags, but they were all dated for tomorrow. Post-surgical waste from procedures that hadn't happened yet. Blood bags with tomorrow's expiration dates. And at the bottom, wrapped in red biohazard plastic, was something that made me slam the container shut and stumble backward. It was an EMT uniform. My old EMT uniform, the one I'd thrown away 3 years ago when I quit. But it was covered in fresh blood, still wet, still warm. The name tag read D. Vance, and there was a hole in the chest, right where the heart would be. I loaded the container and drove, not to the coordinates on the manifest, but home. I needed to think, needed to figure out what was happening. But when I pulled into my apartment complex, another biosafe truck was already there. B47, my truck, again. This time I parked and waited, watched. The other me came out of my apartment building at 3:47 a.m. exactly. He looked older, tired, wearing an EMT uniform. My old uniform. He got into the truck and drove away. I followed. He drove to Mercy General, but not to the loading dock, to the emergency entrance. He parked and got out, but now he wasn't wearing the biosafe uniform anymore. He was in EMT gear, rolling a gurney. There was someone on it, covered in a sheet. The hospital doors opened for him like he was expected. I waited in the parking lot until dawn, but the other me never came out. When I finally went inside to ask about an EMT named Derek Vance, the reception nurse looked confused. There was no EMT by that name. Hadn't been for 3 years. But she remembered me. Said I'd quit after the Morrison incident. The Morrison incident. I'd buried that memory, but it came flooding back. Dr. Morrison, the head of emergency medicine. He died during my shift. Heart attack in his office. I tried to resuscitate him for 45 minutes, long after it was hopeless. They had to pull me off him. That's when I started drinking. That's when I quit. But here's the thing. Last week, one of my special pickups had a manifest signed by Dr. Morrison. Current date. I thought it was someone else with the same name. I drove back to the warehouse where I'd loaded the container. It was gone. Not just the container, the entire warehouse. Empty lot, like nothing had ever been there. But the ground was disturbed. Fresh dirt in a rectangle exactly the size of an industrial medical waste container. I called Bill, my old trainer. His number was disconnected. I drove to his house, the address he'd given me during training. The neighbor said nobody named Bill had ever lived there. The house had been empty for 5 years. That night I went back to work. Had to. The compulsion was too strong, like something was pulling me. My route list had 7 special pickups, all with wrong red containers, all with patient names I recognized, EMTs who'd worked with me, nurses from my old hospital, all dated with deaths that hadn't happened yet. But there was a pattern. Each death was exactly 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days after they'd quit medical service, like there was a timer, a countdown that started the moment you stopped trying to save lives. I did the math. My quit date was 3 years, 3 months, and 2 days ago. Tomorrow would be my expiration date. The coordinates for all 7 pickups led to the same place. A facility I'd never seen before, industrial building with no markings, no signs. But when I arrived, there were dozens of trucks, not just biosafe, but medical waste vehicles from companies I'd never heard of, all loading or unloading containers, all driven by people who looked familiar but wrong, too old or too young, wearing uniforms from different decades. Inside the facility, I could see through the loading dock doors, operating rooms, but not normal ones. The walls were transparent, and I could see through them into other operating rooms, layers and layers of them, extending infinitely in all directions. In each room, the same operation was being performed on the same patient, but at different stages: birth, life, death, decomposition, all happening simultaneously. A man in a hazmat suit approached my truck. When he was close enough, I could see through his visor. It was Bill, but also not Bill. Younger, older, both at once. "You're early," he said. "The transition isn't until tomorrow." "What transition?" I asked. "From driver to cargo," he said matter-of-factly. "Everyone who handles medical waste eventually becomes medical waste. That's the cycle. You transport the remnants of healing until you become a remnant yourself. The red bags aren't dyed with blood. They're dyed with time. The time stolen from everyone who couldn't be saved." "I don't understand." Bill smiled, a sad expression. "Every person you failed to save as an EMT, they left something behind. Not their body, that got properly disposed of, but their potential, their unlived time. It has to go somewhere. We collect it, process it, redistribute it. The hospitals that don't exist are hospitals that could have existed if those people had lived. The procedures that haven't happened yet are the ones they would have needed. So I'm going to die tomorrow." Bill shook his head. "Not die. Transition. You'll become part of the system. Drive the trucks that exist in the spaces between moments. Deliver waste from procedures that might have been. Your other self, the one you've been seeing. That's you from a timeline where you saved Dr. Morrison. He's been covering your route in the timelines where you didn't make it. I got back in my truck and drove away, but I knew I'd be back. The compulsion was too strong. The weight of all those failed saves, all those people I couldn't help. It was pulling me toward tomorrow at 3:47 a.m. That was 6 hours ago. I'm sitting in my truck now, typing this on my phone, parked outside Mercy General. It's 3:15 a.m. In 32 minutes, I'll either die or transition or whatever Bill called it. I can already see the other trucks gathering. Other versions of me from timelines where I made different choices. The EMT who saved everyone. The drunk who saved no one. The one who never quit. The one who quit on day 1. They're all watching me, waiting. The red bags in the back of my truck are pulsing in unison like a heartbeat, or like time itself breathing, in and out, life and death, save and fail. I just checked the manifest for tonight. There's one more pickup scheduled for 3:47 a.m. The patient name is everyone I ever failed to save. The pickup location is the exact spot where I'm parked. The container is me. 20 minutes now. The other versions of me are getting out of their trucks, forming a circle. They're all wearing different uniforms from different times in my life. EMT, medical waste driver, even one in scrubs like I'd become a doctor in some timeline. They're not threatening. They look tired, ready to rest. Bill was wrong about one thing. This isn't a transition. It's a consolidation. All the versions of me from all the failed timelines coming together to form something new. Something that exists in the spaces between life and death, collecting the remnants of what could have been. 15 minutes. I can see inside the hospital now. Not through the windows, but through time itself. I can see every patient I ever transported, every life I ever touched, every death I witnessed. They're all there, all at once, existing in a state between saved and lost. 10 minutes. The red containers in my truck are opening themselves. Inside are not medical waste bags, but memories. Each one a moment where I could have done something different. Turn left instead of right. Compress faster. One more round of epinephrine. Small choices that spiraled into different timelines. 5 minutes. I understand now. The medical waste system isn't about disposing of biological hazards. It's about collecting temporal hazards, moments that could have been, but weren't. Lives that should have continued but didn't. We're the cleanup crew for reality's mistakes. 3 minutes. The other versions of me are merging, becoming one. Not solid, not transparent, but something in between. Like the wrong red of the containers. Not quite blood, not quite time, but both. 1 minute. I'm getting out of the truck, walking toward the circle. The manifest in my hand is changing, rewriting itself. Every name is becoming my name. Every death is becoming my death. Every timeline is converging on this moment. 3:47 a.m. I am the driver and the cargo, the collector and the collected, the one who saves and the one who needs saving. The truck door closes behind me, but I'm also still in the driver's seat. I'm loading myself as medical waste while also driving myself to disposal. The paradox doesn't hurt. It feels like coming home. The coordinates on the final manifest aren't to a place, but to a when. Every 3:47 a.m. that has ever existed or will exist. That's where the red bags go. Not to be destroyed, but to be redistributed. The stolen time given back to those who need it most. An extra minute for a goodbye. An extra heartbeat for a transplant to arrive. An extra second for the right decision to be made. The merger completes, and I exist everywhere and nowhere at once. I'm in my truck, but also in every medical waste truck that has ever existed. I can see the entire network now, spreading across not just the city, but across time itself. Thousands of drivers, all collecting the same thing, the remnants of what should have been. But something's wrong. The system is breaking down. The containers are overflowing. There's too much waste, too many failed timelines, too many moments that went wrong. The incinerators can't keep up. The disposal sites are full. The red bags are piling up in dimensions that were never meant to hold physical objects. A voice speaks through my radio, even though it's turned off. All drivers report to central processing. Code black. Repeat, code black. I know what code black means now. The knowledge flows into me from all my merged selves. It's a complete system failure. When the medical waste of reality itself backs up, When the failed moments and lost possibilities reach critical mass, everything collapses. Not just our timeline, but all of them. I drive, following coordinates that exist in my mind rather than on any manifest. Other trucks converge from all directions, some from the past, some from the future, some from timelines that never quite existed. We're all heading to the same place: central processing, a facility that exists in the gap between heartbeats, in the pause between life and death. The building materializes as I approach, flickering between states. Sometimes it's a modern hospital, sometimes an ancient temple of healing, sometimes just a void in the shape of suffering. The parking lot is full of trucks from every era, horse-drawn carriages carrying plague victims' belongings, future vehicles I don't recognize carrying diseases that haven't evolved yet. Inside, the facility is chaos. Mountains of red bags, wrong red, pulsing and writhing. Each one contains a moment of medical failure, a surgery that went wrong, a diagnosis missed, a cure that arrived too late. They're all here, physically manifested as biological waste that can't be destroyed, because destroying them would mean erasing the lessons learned from failure. Dr. Morrison is there. Not dead, not alive, but functioning as some kind of administrator. He wears scrubs that shift between different decades of medical fashion. "Vance," he says, recognizing me immediately. Or should I say, all the Vances. "You're just in time for the end." End of what? The end of the current processing cycle. Every 100 years, the system resets. We burn everything and start fresh. But this time, there's too much. The medical advances of the last century created more failure than success. More people saved temporarily, only to die later. More procedures that extended suffering rather than ending it. The waste is winning. He leads me deeper into the facility, past rooms where other workers sort through the bags. They're all people I recognize, medical professionals who died or quit or broke under the weight of their failures. Now they work here, processing the aftermath of human suffering. There's a central chamber, massive, with walls that extend infinitely upward. In the center is a furnace, but not one that burns with fire. It burns with forgetting. The red bags go in, and the failed moments are erased from all timelines. The patient never existed. The procedure was never attempted. The suffering never happened. But the furnace is cold, dead. It stopped 3 days ago, Morrison explains, the moment your timeline started fragmenting. When you began seeing yourself, following yourself, the system recognized an anomaly. You're not supposed to be aware of the process while you're still in it. So what happens now? Morrison pulls out a manifest, but this one is different. It's not paper, but something like crystallized time, solid and transparent. The writing shifts as I look at it, showing different possibilities. There are 3 options, he says. First, we can force a reset. Burn everything, including ourselves. The entire medical waste management system of reality gets erased and rebuilt from scratch. But we lose all the accumulated knowledge, all the lessons learned from failure. Second, we can let it overflow. The waste spills back into regular reality. Every failed medical procedure, every death that should have been prevented, manifests physically in the world. The dead return, but wrong. The diseases we cured come back resistant. The surgical mistakes repeat endlessly. What's the third option? Morrison looks at me with an expression I remember from my EMT days. The look he gave when a patient was beyond saving, but he had to try anyway. Someone becomes the filter, takes all the waste into themselves, becomes a living incinerator, processing the failed moments internally forever. They'd exist in all timelines simultaneously, experiencing every medical failure that ever was or ever could be. It would be infinite suffering, but it would save everyone else. I already know what I'm going to choose. The other versions of me, the ones I've merged with, they all know too. It's the same choice we made every time as an EMT. Take the suffering so others don't have to. I'll do it, I say. Morrison shakes his head. I knew you'd say that. Every driver eventually volunteers. That's why you were chosen. But it doesn't work with just one person. The filter needs to be complete, a full circuit. We need someone from the beginning of medicine and someone from its end. The beginning. The first healer. The first person who tried to save another and failed. They're here, have been since the system started. But we need someone from the end too. The last medical professional who will ever exist, and that hasn't happened yet. As he speaks, another figure enters the chamber, ancient, wearing robes that might be from Egypt or Mesopotamia or somewhere even older. Their face is hidden, but their hands are visible, covered in the stains of every medicine ever mixed, every wound ever treated. I have waited, they say, their voice like wind through burial chambers. The first failure. A child with a fever I could not break. They died in my arms, and their death created this place. Every healer since has added to it. But the circle must close. They hold out their hand to me. In it is a container, wrong red like all the others, but older, the original, the first medical waste bag containing the first failed attempt to defeat death. If you take this, they continue, you become the Omega to my Alpha. The last healer, your timeline becomes the final one. Medicine ends with you, but in ending, it completes. The waste gets processed, not by forgetting, but by accepting. Every failure becomes a lesson. Every death becomes meaningful. But if medicine ends, people will suffer, I protest. Medicine doesn't end, Morrison interjects. It transforms. Instead of fighting death, we accept it. Instead of generating waste, we generate wisdom. The suffering continues, but without the false hope of endless medical intervention. It's more honest. I take the container. It's impossibly heavy and weightless at the same time. Inside, I can feel the fevered breathing of a child from 10,000 years ago. But also my own breathing, labored and failing, from a timeline that hasn't happened yet. The moment I touch it, I see everything, the complete history of medical intervention, from the first poultice to the last nanomachine. Every success, every failure, every moment of hope and despair, it all flows through me. And I understand the true nature of medical waste. It's not the discarded tissue, or used needles, or expired medicines. It's the discarded hope, the promises we couldn't keep. We'd everything we could, that was never enough. Every red bag contains not biological material, but broken promises. The ancient healer and I stand facing each other, holding the container between us. The other drivers, the workers, even Morrison, they all step back. A circle forms, not just in the chamber, but across all timelines. Every medical professional who ever lived or will live stands witness. Ready? The ancient healer asks. I think of all the people I failed to save. All the times I performed CPR on someone who was already gone. All the families I had to tell, I'm sorry. They're all here, in this moment, in this container. Ready, I say. We open it together. What emerges isn't what I expected, not disease or death or decay. It's a child, the same child from 10,000 years ago, but also every patient who ever died despite our best efforts. They're not angry or suffering. They're smiling. Thank you, the child says, for trying, even when you knew you would fail. Thank you for trying. The child touches both of us, the first healer and me, the last. In that touch, the circuit completes. The medical waste system inverts. Instead of collecting failures, it begins distributing acceptance. Every red bag becomes a moment of grace. Every pickup becomes a delivery of understanding that sometimes, despite our best efforts, people die, and that's okay. The facility transforms around us. The mountains of waste bags become gardens. The incinerator becomes a fountain. The trucks in the parking lot become trees. The entire system shifts from disposal to growth. But I'm changing too. My body is becoming something else. Not solid anymore, but not gone either. I'm becoming the medium through which medical waste gets processed. Every failed procedure, every lost patient, they all pass through me now. I feel their pain, but also their release. I carry their stories from the timeline where they died to all the timelines where they might have lived, showing the difference, teaching the lesson. Morrison approaches me one last time. You know what this means, right? You can never stop driving, never stop collecting, never stop processing. You're the eternal EMT now, saving people not from death, but from the fear of it. I understand. I'm okay with it. The ancient healer releases their side of the container. After 10,000 years, you're free, I tell them. They bow and slowly fade, dispersing into light. The first failure has been processed. The system can begin to heal itself. But there's more work to do, infinite amounts of it. Every second, somewhere in some timeline, a medical procedure fails. Someone dies who might have lived. Hope turns to grief, and all of that waste needs to be collected, processed, transformed into acceptance. I get back in my truck. But it's not the same truck anymore. It exists in all times, all places, all realities where medicine is practiced. The radio crackles with infinite dispatches. Pickup needed at a prehistoric cave where a shaman's herbs didn't work. Delivery required to a space station where a cure was found too late. Collection requested from a battlefield surgery that couldn't save everyone. I drive through dimensions now, collecting the remnants of medical hope. My truck phases between realities, like tuning through radio stations. One moment I'm in 1347, collecting plague victims' failed treatments. The next, I'm in 2847, gathering the waste from unsuccessful consciousness transfers. Time has no meaning when you're processing eternal failure. My route list updates constantly, written in languages that haven't been invented yet, and symbols from civilizations that already forgot they existed. Each pickup tells a story. Location: London, 1665. Black Death Ward. Pickup: one red bag containing the accumulated prayers of 17 doctors who believed bloodletting would work. Note: the blood itself achieved sentience and needs special handling. Location: somewhere over the Pacific, 2089. Flying hospital. Pickup: 47 containers of temporal waste from an experiment that tried to reverse aging, but instead made patients experience every age simultaneously. Note: containers exist in multiple states. Wear protective gear against paradoxes. Location: undefined. Sometime during the heat death of the universe. Last hospital. Pickup: the final medical procedure ever attempted. A doctor trying to restart a heart that's been cold for 1 billion years. Note: this pickup happens constantly, as it's always the last procedure from some timeline's perspective. The radio crackles with a familiar voice. It's Bill, but not the Bill who trained me. This is Bill from a timeline where he never stopped driving, where he figured out the truth decades ago. Derek, he says through static, that sounds like screaming. You need to see something. Route 47, the original Route 47, from before the first medical waste was ever created. It's opening again. I follow coordinates that lead nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The road materializes under my wheels. a path made of compressed medical charts, paved with prescription pads, lined with IV tubes instead of telephone wires. This is the infrastructure of medical reality itself. At the end of the road is the original sin of medicine. Not the first death, but the first time someone blamed themselves for not preventing one. A cave, ancient beyond measure, where someone first thought, I should have saved them. Inside the cave, painted on walls that exist before walls were invented, is the complete map of medical failure. Every red bag that would ever exist is already depicted here, drawn in ochre and blood and guilt. The cave paintings move, showing procedures that haven't failed yet, but will, must, because failure is how medicine learns. But there's something else. Some of the paintings are changing, showing successes turning into failures retroactively. Procedures that worked for decades suddenly failing across all timelines. Diseases that were cured becoming uncurable again. The waste is flowing backward, contaminating the past. A figure emerges from the shadows. It's me, but older, ancient, worn down by millennia of driving. This version of me has been collecting medical waste since before medicine existed, preparing for its invention by gathering the failures that would come. You're early, the older me says. The convergence isn't supposed to happen for another 1,000 years. What convergence? When all timelines collapse into one. When every possible medical outcome happens simultaneously. Every patient both lives and dies. Every procedure succeeds and fails. Every disease is cured and incurable. The paradox destroys causality itself unless someone prevents it. How do we prevent it? The older me laughs, a sound like ambulance sirens played backward. We don't prevent it. We become it. The convergence needs a focal point, a consciousness that can exist in the paradox without resolving it. Someone who's already everybody who ever failed to save anyone. He shows me his arms. They're covered in markings, not tattoos, but actual patient names, billions of them, written in languages from every culture that ever practiced medicine. The names move, shift, sometimes disappearing as timelines collapse, sometimes multiplying as new failures propagate backward through time. This is what you become, he continues. Not a driver, not a filter, but a living memorial to medical failure. Every name is someone who died, despite our best efforts. But here's the secret. They're also the names of everyone who lived, because we learned from those failures. The same names, different outcomes, all true simultaneously. I understand now why the red bags are the wrong color. They're not red from blood. They're red from shift, like stars moving away from us. They're medical waste from futures that are receding, becoming impossible as the convergence approaches. Every failed future surgery, every unsuccessful treatment that will never happen, they're all being collected now, compressed into the present moment. The cave starts to shift around us. The paintings become three-dimensional, failures stepping out of the walls. I see myself, countless versions, each one failing to save someone different, but also succeeding. The same moment, both outcomes, existing simultaneously. You have to make a choice, the older me says. Accept the convergence and become the eternal witness to all medical failure across all time. Or refuse it and let the paradox destroy the concept of healing itself. Without someone to observe and record the failures, they become meaningless. Medicine becomes impossible. Suffering continues, but without even the hope of relief. I look at my truck, still faithfully waiting outside the cave. It's carried me this far, through impossible routes to incomprehensible destinations. Inside, the red bags are singing now, a harmony of collected suffering that somehow sounds like hope. There's a third option, I say. The older me raises an eyebrow, a gesture that takes centuries to complete. Instead of collecting the waste or becoming it, we distribute it. Every person who ever lived or will live gets a small piece. One failed procedure, one unsuccessful treatment, one moment of medical imperfection. Spread across billions of souls, the weight becomes bearable. Everyone becomes a little bit of a medical waste driver, carrying their small portion of failure that's never been tried, the older me says. The risk is enormous. If even one person refuses their portion, the entire system collapses. Everyone has to accept that medicine fails sometimes. Everyone has to carry that knowledge. I think about all the families I've told we did everything we could. The anger, the denial, the desperate need to blame someone or something. Would they accept carrying a piece of that failure forever? My radio crackles again. It's not Bill this time. It's everyone. Every professional across all time, speaking in unison. We'll help carry it. Distribute the load. No one drives alone. The cave paintings begin to move differently now. Instead of showing isolated failures, they show networks. A failed surgery in ancient Rome teaches a doctor in the 1920s Chicago who saves someone whose descendant becomes a researcher, who develops a cure in 2150. The failures connect, support each other, create a web of learned experience that spans all of time. I make my decision. I get back in my truck and open all the containers at once. Every red bag, every piece of medical waste from every timeline that ever existed or could exist. Instead of releasing disease or death, they release understanding. Each bag becomes a small packet of knowledge about why medicine sometimes fails and why that's necessary for it to sometimes succeed. The packets disperse like spores, seeking hosts across all of time and space. Every human who ever lived suddenly understands in some small way that healing isn't guaranteed, that doctors are human, that death isn't a medical failure, but a natural endpoint. The knowledge settles into humanity's collective unconscious, a shared understanding that medicine is an attempt, not a guarantee. But something unexpected happens. As the understanding spreads, the medical waste itself begins to transform. The red bags turn clear, then transparent, then invisible. They're still there, still being collected and processed, but now they're part of the natural cycle. Every person carries a tiny piece of the system, unconsciously processing the failures of medicine just by living their lives. The convergence still happens, but differently. Instead of all timelines collapsing into paradox, they braid together like DNA strands. Each timeline maintains its unique path, but shares information with the others. Medical knowledge flows between realities, failures in one timeline preventing the same mistakes in others. My truck evolves too. It's no longer just mine, but everyone's. Anyone ever waited in a hospital, ever taken medicine, ever hoped for healing, they're all driving a piece of it. The route becomes infinite, but also intimate, personal. Each person processes their own medical experiences, their own failures and successes, contributing to the collective understanding. The older version of me nods approvingly before dissolving into light, not dying, but distributing himself across all the drivers, all the people carrying pieces of medical understanding. I feel him merge with me, bringing eons of collected wisdom about failure and acceptance. The cave transforms one final time. It becomes a library, infinite and ever-growing, where every medical failure is recorded not as waste, but as teaching. The paintings on the walls now show the complete picture. Success and failure intertwined, inseparable, each giving meaning to the other. I drive out of the cave, back onto roads that exist in normal space-time. But I'm different now. I can feel the distributed network of understanding, millions of people unconsciously processing medical reality. The red bags in my truck are still there, but they're lighter, shared across the entire human experience. My radio crackles one last time. It's dispatch, but not from any single timeline. It's the voice of medical reality itself. Route complete, it says. System stable. Thank you for your service. But I know the route is never really complete. Every day, medicine fails somewhere. Every day, red bags need collecting. But now it's not just my job. It's everyone's job. Carried out unconsciously, automatically, just by being human and understanding that sometimes, despite our best efforts, healing doesn't happen. I still drive my truck, still collect the wrong red bags from hospitals that don't exist, still deliver them to coordinates that make no sense. But now I'm not alone. Every person who's ever experienced medical care, whether it succeeded or failed, is driving with me. We're all medical waste drivers now, processing the failures that make success possible. The radio plays soft music as I drive into the dawn of a new day that exists in all timelines simultaneously. The music is composed of heart monitors, both flatlined and beating. It's beautiful in its honesty. Medicine isn't about defeating death. It's about trying anyway. My phone buzzes with a text. It's from a number that's just infinity symbols. The message is simple. New pickup. Every hospital that ever existed. Cargo. Acceptance. I smile and turn the truck toward a destination that's everywhere and nowhere. The medical waste system has inverted completely. Instead of collecting failure, we're now distributing acceptance. Each red bag becomes a gift, a small piece of understanding that medicine is an art, not a guarantee. As I drive, I see other trucks on the road. Not medical waste trucks, but regular vehicles. But each one carries a small red container in the trunk, invisible to the eye but present in the heart. Everyone is transporting their piece of medical reality, their portion of the collective understanding that to be human is to try to heal and sometimes fail. The sun rises on all timelines at once, painting the sky the exact wrong red of the bags. It's beautiful, the color of trying, the color of failure that teaches, the color of hope that persists despite statistics. I am Derek Vance. I was an EMT. I am a medical waste driver. I will be the last person to ever practice medicine. I have been all of these things simultaneously since the moment I first tried to save someone and failed. And I'm still driving. Through dimensions, through time, through the space between heartbeats where medicine happens, collecting the failures that make us human, distributing the understanding that makes us whole. The route never ends. The red bags never stop coming. But now, neither does the understanding that failure is just another word for trying. My truck disappears into the horizon that exists in all realities, carrying its cargo of processed hope, delivered acceptance, and the eternal truth that medicine is not about winning against death, but about refusing to stop trying. The radio plays on. Dispatch never stops calling. The red bags wait at impossible addresses. I drive, forever.